Dun 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 dun. Yes, it's that kind of day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent, back in Los Angeles. And I just learned that the metro is going to be extended in May all the way out to Santa Monica, which means I can go to the beach for no car, just $1.75. So that is reason enough to celebrate, but of course we have a lot more reasons to celebrate. The other one being that I am reviewing Hunter S. Thompson's The Rum Diary today. And in addition, doing so along with a review of rum itself from those nice guys, Flaviar, who send me booze out of the goodness of their hearts, not their livers. I don't want you to get the wrong idea, I'm actually not a big drinker at all. I've actually kind of stayed off and got on the wagon recently. I'm actually sort of a health, fitness, weightlifting enthusiast, Believe it or not, I love the gym. I do. I love the gym. It's true. And no, I'm not taking the robe off to prove it, but I could. Actually, back there in New York, I fell off the wagon for a while, so between the cannolis and bagels and Katz's Deli, maybe I'll just, shut the fuck up. Anyways, The Rum Diary by Hunter S. Thompson. Let's get started here. First one is Dos Maderos. I grew up in a house with Hunter S. Thompson. Okay, I didn't grow up in a house with. I grew up in a house where the walls were lined with Hemingway and Hunter S. Thompson. So, I was seeing his titles from a very young age and wondering what the hell I was looking at. This is a review glass by glass of rum. Nice color in that, huh? Yeah, a lot of caramel, brown sugar. Delicious. Dos Maderos. Not bad. So I saw all these books lining the walls, and I would pick them out every once in a while, with titles like Hell's Angels and Better Than Sex. And I remember distinctly looking at this cover of this particular one, Better Than Sex, which all of them were my mom's, She was Hemingway and Hunter S. Thompson, and good taste. Thanks, Mom. But there was this particular book, Better Than Sex, this is awkward now, where I was staring at this photo, that very famous photo of him as the sheriff or something behind the desk with those sunglasses, and he's sitting there, and he's got the phone in his hand, and he's got these sunglasses on, and it just says, and he's got I think the phone, and he's making a call or something, and he's looking totally rad, totally Hunter S. Thompson. But without the context, imagine me this, this blossoming adolescent who's looking at this picture of this guy, where it just says in huge gold font, Better Than Sex, and I'm just thinking to myself, what the hell could be better than sex, and what does it have to do with this strange, bald man? So, that was my introduction to Hunter S. Thompson. Household name. But that's all that Hunter leaves us with his writing and his articles. An endless sea of absurd questions. Absurd because they reflect real life. Alright, second rum now. Don't you like this? This is a scarf because I lost the belt when I was being thrown off this chair into my friend's swimming pool in downtown Los Angeles on the roof. We were all ragingly drunk. I'm not really making a good case for the fact that I don't drink here, by the way. But I really don't. Not that much. Nor should you, but if you do, that's fine. Whatever. Anyways, I lost the belt, and I can't remember where I put it. I'm moving on to the Kraken spiced rum. We're going to see how this goes here. And so, Thompson, as I'm sure most of you guys realize, I should say, most of you are probably very familiar with Thompson, so much to the fact that, any sort of backstory on him would be superfluous. But, for those of you who are not, it's a great story, right? As those who know the story can attest. But Thompson was all about limit experience, especially in the 60s, which is around the time when this was written. Limit experience involving, drugs, alcohol, violence, life, motorcycles, going fast, live fast, die young, that whole thing. There was nobody who personified that attitude better than Hunter S. Thompson. And also like the willingness to engage in a culture in the fullest, to immerse yourself entirely in it, which is where people like maybe Anthony Bourdain have really, taken those words to heart and carried it on in their own manner. I like Anthony Bourdain. By me, Bourdain's awesome. If you don't, tough shit. And Thompson definitely was influenced by Hemingway. What the fuck am I even doing? What the fuck am I even doing? I don't care. Yes, it was glass, and yes, it just did break everywhere. Fuck it. Ooh. It's spicy, but molasses-y. It's thicker. Sweltering. Even heavier caramel notes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I always see that one at the bottle in bars, I always see Kraken spiced rum, and I've been like, nah. Actually, my favorite, they don't have it here, but my favorite, and if you'd like to endorse me and you work with them, send me a bottle, and I will review it, is Zaya rum, Z-A-Y-A. It's fantastic. This is great stuff, too. Zaya is my favorite, personally. That's just me. Great sipping rum. Very, very sweet, but really thick and almost like doesn't really, it doesn't really pour out of the glass so much as it slides. Perfect if you like cigars, which I am a cigar guy. I know it's just the whole fucking Hemingway, Hunter S. Thompson, machismo shit, but fuck it. That's what I love. I love a good cigar and a glass of rum. God, this is good. Thanks, Flaviar. That's nice. Goes well with my bathrobe. So anyways, Hunter S. Thompson was all about getting done whatever needed to be done. What needed to be done, and he was going to get the story. He was going to write it in the best possible way, using the best word, and man, it goes without saying there was no one, and there is no one like Hunter S. Thompson. The Rum Diary is one of his earliest books. It was actually written when he was, I think he was like 20 or 22 or something, because it's semi-autobiographical, kind of, as much as, he did go down to Puerto Rico, to go work for this newspaper, which is imploding, It's one of his earliest books that actually was not published until 1998. It is semi-autobiographical in the sense that Hunter S. Thompson actually did go down to Puerto Rico to go and work on this newspaper. So our protagonist, Paul Kemp, travels to San Juan in search of something, He's young, he's like 27, 28, and he's writing for a paper, and he's dealing with like the political and social collapse of this culture that he's walking into. All of it, all of it's seen through the eyes of this, an alcoholic, because that's the lens we view the story through. Rum, nothing but rum, all the time. Our protagonist, it would be safe to say, is drunk throughout the entire novel, 24/7, Malcolm Lowry style. Looking through the bottom of a glass of rum was the view, quite literally, Thompson wanted for this book. Rum was the catalyst for the story of this young man in San Juan. Kind of starting to feel this rum. Oh look, a banana. Hello? Okay, anyway, I'm moving on to, Ron DeJeremy. Ron DeJeremy. It's probably going to taste like pina colada, suntan lotion, and Vaseline with notes of regret. Funny thing about Ron Jeremy. What the fuck? This one has a cap on it. What the shit? What the fuck? Anyways, Ron Jeremy has a sex club back in Portland, where I'm from, and called Club Sesso. I've never been. But a friend went and had public sex there. Drunk public sex. He said it was actually great. He was very happy that that he could do that. Food was good. People were really friendly. Really friendly. Really friendly. He was thrilled that he had sex in public, and it was actually a lot of fun, which is a lesson to be learned, I think, for us all. So thank you, Ron Jeremy. I'm still really uncomfortable about putting this in my mouth, but okay. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. No. Really, really light comparatively, you know, which could just be because my palate's all fucked from the other ones, but I mean, you can even look at the color. Like, it's super, super light. If you like light rum, I don't personally. Preference thing. So, moving on. More rum. But before that, I met a contemporary of Ron Jeremy's as well. The very first time I had ever come to Los Angeles, and I was in Intelligentsia Cafe on Sunset Boulevard, and it was packed, and there was this huge line, and I ordered my coffee, and I go sit down, and I'm sitting there in the corner in the back, and I'm looking at the people coming in the line, which is stretched out the door. It's probably maybe like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Big lunch rush. And I spot this woman, this, you know, middle-aged woman, you know, pretty, and I recognize her from somewhere. And it takes me like 10 minutes, you know, like getting these dodgy glances, just like, you know, furtively scoping out this lady who looks very business professional with these big black frame glasses, you know, and this collared dress shirt, and she's with this other very, very attractive, like, it was Nina Hartley, I finally realized, and she comes and sits down right behind me. And at one point I just like spit her out, and I'm like, I love your work, you know. And so then on that line, she's very, very friendly, and she takes my phone and gives it to this other younger, also very attractive porn star, and proceeds to bite my earlobe and make her friend take pictures on my phone, which is great. She's a sweetheart. And I worked in video, so I was like, hey, any chance of us working together? Nah. She's like, thanks a lot. Nice to meet you. Porn, funny. Yeehaw. But I digress. Alright, I just cleaned my mouth out with that banana. Excuse me, water. Just to give this next one a fair shot. And this next one is called PYRAT. PYRAT. Or PYRAT. I doubt. So, Thompson actually did go to Puerto Rico and work for this collapsing newspaper. You know, and again, this was in his early 20s, and it wasn't actually fully published until 1998, and Thompson struggled for a long time. He's like 10 years or something before he actually got a breakthrough with Hell's Angels, which I should have reviewed, but I mean, like, you know, there was Rum Diary. I had all this rum around. It felt right. It's February. It's like 75 here, so I'll get to Hell's Angels. Don't worry about that. Anyways, PYRAT. But, you know, he was a sports writer. He was down and out financially, but he really wanted to write this novel in a Hemingway, you know, esque fashion about a young guy who travels to San Juan. So the Hells Angels, actually, he was writing this book at the same time he was writing this this piece on the Hells Angels, this book that would become this very famous, almost diary kind of living with the Hells Angels, who were unknown at that point. And then after he got the offer for that, I mean, like, that launched him after he wrote it. You know, and it's always a story over and over. It's like 10 years of failure, and like he's like, I couldn't even drive a cab, right? You know. And suddenly, boom, he's like instantly successful. He has to like quit his job because he's so famous and everything, and he, you know, it's like, and everybody will be like, oh, it just came out of nowhere. No, it came out of years of blood, sweat, and tears on the account of this guy who had this wife and kid, you know. All right, we're gonna see how this goes. Orange. Orange. Zesty. Zesty. Like, it tastes like, almost like cinnamon and, yeah, those, like, hot cinnamon and orange beverages. Kind of like a hot toddy, but it's cold. Cold toddy. Anyways, you know that movie Whiplash where the really sadistic professor goes like, there are no two words more harmful than there's no phrase that is more harmful than good job, that sort of thing. Actually, it's a great line. Kind of believe that. I mean, I wouldn't go through what that kid went through just to play an awesome drum solo, that's for sure. But, we all have our obsession, right? Good movie, good line, good movie, not bad. So, anyways, Thompson writes this book, and the Hells Angels want a cut. Okay? Because all of a sudden, they're famous, they're well known. And Hunter is like, this is the first money he's seen for his work, so, he's like, nope. And so they beat the living hell out of him. They beat the shit out of Hunter S. Thompson. And if it wasn't for one big guy, according to his wife, one big guy rescuing him from this gang stomp, then that would have been it. He would have been killed. They would have fucking murdered him. So he lived. Barely. Thank God. So he was writing the Rum Diary at the same time as the Hells Angels, but the Hells Angels took off, and then the Rum Diary kind of got shelved, and he had sent the manuscript out somewhere. It might have been Random House or something, but they wouldn't publish it, but they wouldn't send him the manuscript back, so he had to steal it back. He had it stolen back. I don't know how. That's just a great line from this little documentary I'll link to in the... So yeah, he did want to write the story about this young man in a Hemingway-style fashion, but he wanted to have this kind of tragic aura to it, this sort of weight. And the violence, of course. This tragic, violent... There was no better setting for tragic violence than the tropics. San Juan happened to be perfect, mixed with like the alcoholism and the casual sex and dancing and fighting and the political, the weird political turmoil, and then all like the social upheaval and all of this shit. This story emerges of a very young man's exposure to political, financial, and social corruption, witnessing the rotten core of the seemingly beautiful apple, and attempting to escape it with his mind and body intact. Classic story. Really strong. Very short too. Definitely weekend getaway material, Thompson's writing is of course very much like his own character or persona. If you'll watch any interviews or documentaries about him, though maybe a little bit more articulate because he's kind of a mumbler when you're listening to him. But because, the words out of his mouth are stumbling due to his mind working so fast, much faster than his body. He insists on using the perfect word and can construct the perfect sentence, but it's a little bit befuddled in a really charming way, when you're actually listening to him in person. So he's this kind of like strange mumbling old man, but in a charming way, which has become obviously very imitable because of Johnny Depp's performance in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. His manner, Hunter S. Thompson's mannerisms are extremely distinct. For example, a lot of these descriptions sound like orders from a drill sergeant, right? The humor is very direct and delivered with a deadly straight face, which of course makes it all the more humorous. He was brilliant at deadpan comedy. He turned his old living room into a small piano bar and got a pianist from Miami, a thin, sad-faced man called Nelson Otto. The piano was midway between the cocktail lounge and the patio. It was an old baby grand, painted light gray and covered with special shellac to keep the salt air from ruining the finish. And 7 nights a week, though through all 12 months of the endless Caribbean summer, Nelson Otto sat down at the keyboard to mingle his sweat with the weary chords of his music. At the Tourist Bureau, they talk about the cooling trade winds that caress the shores of Puerto Rico every day and night of the year. But Nelson Otto was a man the trade winds never seemed to touch. Hour after muggy hour, through a tired repertoire of blues and sentimental ballads, the sweat dripped from his chin and soaked the armpits of his flowered cotton sports shirts. He cursed the goddamn shitting heat with such violence and such hatred that it sometimes ruined the atmosphere of the place, and people would get up and walk down the street to the Flamboyant Lounge, where a bottle of beer cost 60 cents and a sirloin steak was $3.50. I did some drinking there on the night I left for San Juan. Phil Rollins, who worked with me, was paying for the ale, and I was swilling it down, trying to get drunk enough to sleep on the plane. Art Millick, the most vicious cab driver in New York City, was there. So was Duke Peterson, who had just come back from the Virgin Islands. I recall Peterson giving me a list of people to look up when I got to St. Thomas. But I lost the list. I never met any of them. Brilliant at packing a punch with literary dialogue. He's so minimal. Cut. Perfect. He stood up and held out his hand. Bob Sala, staff photographer, he said. What brings you in tonight? I'm looking for a place to eat. He smiled. You broke? No, I'm rich. I just can't find a restaurant. It's the sweltering atmosphere that he creates, right? One giant tropical-themed steamy motel dive bar. It's the tropic rot, this constant, sexless drinking. He befriends all the writers at this newspaper, which is just like, they're having to deal with riots and all these people. It's just like collapsing. And the things they share in common, of course, are countless hours of drinking a great deal of rum. It's interesting. My round ice cube has melted into the shape of an eaten apple core. Drinking a great deal of rum and getting into brawls with local Puerto Ricans. On my way back to the library, I wondered how long I would last in San Juan. How long before I'd be labeled a weasel or a pervert? Before I started kicking myself in the balls or got chopped up by nationalist thugs? I remembered Lauderman's voice when he called me in New York, the strange jerkiness and the odd phrasing. I had sensed it then, and now I knew. I could almost see him, gripping the phone with both white-knuckled hands, trying to keep his voice steady, while mobs gathered at his doorstep, and drunken reporters pissed all over the office, saying tensely, "Sure thing, Kemp. You sound normal enough. Just come on down, Ann." And here I was, a new face in the snake pit, a pervert yet to be classified, sporting a paisley tie and a button-down shirt, no longer young but not quite over the hump, a man on the brink, as it were, trotting back to the library to find out what was going on. And to find out what was going on, what is going on, what's happening in this culture, at this time, that's Hunter S. Thompson in a nutshell. Not that he should be put in a nutshell. He was always trying to find out the pulse of whatever culture he was inhabiting at any given time, and to find the extreme limits of every situation, socially speaking. Another theme, which is very prevalent in the book, of course, is the insecurity you are feeling in your 20s when you really have not accomplished anything, and you are wondering if you'll ever accomplish anything, especially writers. Dealing with getting older, and like I said, in plenty of other interviews, this is a common theme, being relegated to the dustbins of the cosmos, or, oblivion. Excuse me. I realized how long it had been since I felt like I had the world by the balls. How many quick birthdays had gone since that first year in Europe, when I was so ignorant and so confident that every splinter of luck made me feel like a roaring champion. That kind of hits close to home. I hadn't felt that way in a long time. Perhaps in the ambush of those years, the idea that I was a champion had been shot out from under me, but I remembered it now, and it made me feel old and slightly nervous that I had done so little in such a long time. And then from later on in the book is this line that I just highlighted and loved. I didn't say much, but merely sat there and drank, trying to decide if I was getting older and wiser, or just plain old. As it goes back to that E.M. Cigron line that I just reviewed, age and wisdom. Watch a review. There's someone screaming out there with a microphone, and they're seeming arriba las mujeres, or like viva las mujeres. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I love Los Angeles. Arriba las mujeres. Sí. Claro. Está bien. Las mujeres es bien. Ron Zacapa. Ron Zacapa. Centenario 23. Je ne sais pas. But I like the color. Oh, that's good. Really rich vanilla. Gasoline? I don't know. It's good. This one's really strong. Spicy vanilla. Maybe my favorite. Ron Zacapa. Pretty good. There was a strange and unreal air about the world I'd come into. It was amusing and vaguely depressing at the same time. Here I was, living in a luxury hotel, racing around a half-Latin city in a toy car that looked like a cockroach and sounded like a jet fighter, sneaking down alleys and humping on the beach. Scavenging for food in shark-infested waters, hounded by mobs yelling in foreign tongue, and the whole thing was taking place in quaint old Spanish Puerto Rico, where everybody spent American dollars and drove American cars and sat around roulette wheels, pretending they were in Casablanca. One part of the city looked like Tampa, and the other part looked like a medieval asylum. Everybody I met acted as if they had just come back from a crucial screen test, and I was being paid a ridiculous salary to wander around and take it all in, to find out what was going on. I need to stop reading lines from this book, but they're so damn good. The bowling alleys. I love this line. There was no shortage of free liquor for the press, because all hustlers crave publicity. There was no shortage of free liquor for the press, because all hustlers crave publicity. No occasion was too small for them to give what they called a press party in its honor. Each time Woolworths or the Chase Manhattan Bank opened a new branch, they celebrated with an orgy of rum. Not a month went by without the opening of a new bowling alley. They were building them on every vacant lot. So many bowling alleys that it was horrible to ponder the meaning of it. What do we do with a drunken sailor? What do we do with a drunken sailor? What do we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? As many of you know, Hunter S. Thompson shot himself in the head a few years back. One acquaintance of mine who's a music video director now, nice guy, was living with Hunter S. Thompson for the last year of his life, writing for him and filming some stuff around the house. Met him at a party up there at Owl Farm or whatever, and he was there, the day that Hunter S. Thompson took his own life. Another friend of mine was a cinematographer who was living in Colorado at the time and was actually filming this documentary piece up there, I think maybe like 2 weeks before it happened, so these kind of strange 6-degree connections to that fellow and event. All suicides are not created equally. I'll say that. One could argue the result is the same, and the same physically, sure, perhaps, but there's suicide from despair and pride, depression, insanity, or just vice, excess. I'm neither for or against it, but when it happens, I try to choose my words very carefully. It's like Ernest Hemingway said, every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another. And of course, the same goes for women. The notable ones who met the end by their own hand, of course, being Sylvia Plath and Miss Wolfe. So, decide how to distinguish yourself. Live as only you know how and are able. Live a life worth dying for. And Hunter certainly did. Hunter certainly did. It isn't enough to be good, right, for us, it isn't enough to be good for us, those who survive and are forced to look backwards and learn and interpret and build some sort of coherent meaning out of the absurd lives of people from the past, marvelous or hideous instances, out of the lives of others. It isn't enough to be good, right? Plenty of good, wonderful, capable people will die and be forgotten in an instant, and have been. Bovine contentment, back in the cycle of things, so to speak. Plenty of happy people. Very happy people. But essentially, as far as people you are going to remember and learn from, you can throw good under the bus. It is far more interesting to be interesting, right? The most fascinating people in history are not good people. That is an opinion. But Writers are, for the most part, not always, but, for the most part, terrible fucking people. Selfish, strange, evil sometimes, like fucked up, dysfunctional cookies. The greatest ones are or were likely clinically insane. There is nothing balanced or wholesome or decent about good writing. But they're fascinating. We love them. Why? Because they know something that we don't. They've gone to that place where the eyes don't see. Life would be a horribly uninteresting place without them. But make no mistake, great literature is very, very dangerous. And that's not just the rum talking. Being insane or screwed up in the head does not make you a good writer. But it sure gives you a fighting chance, no? Oh no. Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh no, it's Coco, it's blasphemy. I like David Foster Wallace. Look, to be fair, I don't really care for David Foster Wallace's books, but there is one absolutely brilliant and tortured soul. So, here's to David Foster Wallace. Oh man. God, rum and Coke. So good. When they're good, when it's good, it's good. If you don't drink it all the time, it can be good. So, all these meditations on suicide and death and insanity and all this stuff, I know. I mean, I take it seriously, but I don't take it that seriously. It's just that one day, like Hunter with his death, people just stop hearing the music. You know what I'm saying? But until that day, you gotta keep dancing. No matter what. I'm telling you. Now, I know the Gospel of John Waters has served us well to this point. But I've got to grow up and stop being what Hunter would call a suckerfish, I got to stop living off the quotes of others. I got to play my own beat, man. I got to play my own drum, because John's going to come after me looking for royalties one of these days, which he's entirely, I can't blame him. It's a great line, don't get me wrong. And mine might not be as good, but it's mine. You know what I'm saying? So, just bear with me. I mean, if you go home with somebody and they don't have books, don't fuck them. It's awesome. It's great. Gospel of John Waters, never forget it. But why don't we use something else for Better Than Food? Yeah? Something that describes the channel's goals perfectly and succinctly, but still grounded, direct, without being precious or wordy or verbose, How about I'll just say exactly how I feel? Yeah, that's the ticket. Always remember what I say. Life is too short to read bullshit. Life is too short to read bullshit. Anyways, alright. Hunter S. Thompson, The Rum Diary. Check it out. If you don't drink, good for you. If you do drink, please go to Flaviar.com with the link below in the description box. Channel gets a kickback. Really appreciate it. Save you some money on your booze. It's totally awesome. Please donate on Patreon if you can, or PayPal, and subscribe if you have not already. And go to Twitter. I will, like I did with this one, I will be announcing the next book week by week, so you can get you can get a head start. It'll be great. Yeah, it's all good news. It's all good news. I don't know what else. Would you guys buy a bathrobe if I made it? Like a bathrobe with like BTF stenciled right here? I mean, I don't know if I could do that, but it'd be pretty cool, right? I have been getting a lot of submissions from people, from writers, playwrights. Let's see, the last ones were prose, but there was definitely like this really intense Rimbaudžian kind of L'Autrement, like not a manifesto, but it was almost like Pierre Guyata. It was really intense and like 75 pages. I still got to read it again and again. Stuff all over the place. You know, there have been a lot of writers who have been submitting their material to me, and many thanks to you, of course. But if you would like to be reviewed on the show, there's only one way for that to happen, and that is if you submit your writing to me and pay me a reasonable amount to read it and decide. And again, if I do not enjoy your writing, I will let you know in the best constructive feedback that I can possibly come up with why. And maybe we can take it from there, and maybe in the future, I do review it because you made the changes and I love it, or whatever. Or it's just never going to work out and we both lost time and money. But that doesn't mean I don't like you. That doesn't mean that you're not welcome on the show or feel, free to submit again in the future. Yeah. What have you been reading lately? Tell me down below. Yeah. I'm really drunk. This was a good idea, though. I like this. I'm not going to do it very often, but, once in a blue moon. Okay. Have a great day, guys. Ciao!